I just hit the record button. So you are being recorded now. And that is for posterity, of course, and for any folks who can't make the meeting, who might want to take a look at the recording afterwards. All right, let's hop in. People tend to show up in and out. Nobody needs to feel obligated to stay to the bitter end. We hopefully can wrap this up in an hour or so. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rick Kennedy. I am the state chair of the Texas Forward Party. And I came to the Forward Party here in Texas almost 2 years ago to the date. Prior to that, I was a two-time Democratic Party nominee for United States Congress here in the 17th District here in Texas. And in that slightly over 3.5 years of effort of trying to run for Congress, I got enough of a view of what the major parties are like to know that I never wanted to do that again.
Yes.
Took about a year off after that, and almost on a whim, tuned in to the first statewide meeting of the Texas Forward Party. At that point, we had maybe a half a dozen attendees, and was instantly hooked and knew that this is what I had to do. And ever since, well, for about the last 18 months ago, I've either been the state chair or co-chair, depending on whether I've had a co-chair. I do not at the moment. And trying to move this thing forward. So we've got a couple, at least, members of our state executive committee on the call here. Nick Sanders up in Denton County, William Taggart down in Harris County, Julie Cornegie in Montgomery County is on. If there's other members of the EC on, I apologize, I can't see y'all. So just a shout out to all the folks who have been working, trying to build this party for the last couple of years or so, and who are dedicated to continue to build it going forward. And thank you all, everybody else, for taking time out of your evening, taking time away from watching the New Hampshire presidential primary results to join us tonight and get some updates on what we're doing, what we've tried to do, and what we plan on doing over the next couple of years or so. With that, I do have some slides that I'm going to present. I'm going to mute everybody just to cut down the background noise. That doesn't mean you can't unmute when you want to. And by all means, if you have a question, there's room at the end for Q&A. But if you have a question that's relevant to a topic that I'm talking about, by all means, come off mute. Raise your voice and let me know. I like to answer questions. I like to be as interactive as possible, not be dictatorial, answer questions real time if and when possible. If you raise your hand, there's down at the bottom, you should see a reactions menu and you can raise your hand. I would ask Nick, William, Julie, anybody on the EC to let me know somebody has their hand raised, because once I go into presentation mode, I won't be able to see it. And I'm going to go into presentation mode now as we speak. So hold on a second. Let me reshare my screen. And just somebody come off mute, give me a shout out when you can see that.
I see it.
All right. Thank you all. All right, let's jump in. Our agenda is very straightforward tonight. I'd like to do a review of 2023. And actually go back to a little bit of 2022 because it's relevant to understand how we got to where we are. The results of 2023 and earlier, lessons learned, moving forward into 24 and beyond, how you can help, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And as I said, if you've got a relevant question at the moment, by all means, raise a hand or shout it out. I've got a couple of, am I going to not be able to do this? Hold on. I've got a couple of polls set up here. And hold on, let me hide my presenter view so that I can get back to you guys. and launch the first two. And the first two are actually not what's on the screen here, because the numbers for the primary New Hampshire primary are coming in fast and furious already. I think it's fairly obvious that Donald Trump is going to win, and Dean Phillips is not going to pull off the ultimate upset of winning or of beating Joe Biden. So, good golly, where's my Zoom window here? Hold on a second, folks.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'm looking on the website. It shows that New Hampshire, the delegates are shared proportionally
That's
among the
correct.
top candidates. So that does mean that Nikki Haley will end up with some then.
Correct.
How many delegates are up? I guess I don't, not up on that.
22 delegates are up, and it's like just a tiny slice of the total delegates in the Republican primary process.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious.
But I'm going to launch a couple of polls here, and you guys can answer as you wish. Looks like Nikki's going to win, but I'd like to know, what's your opinion on what percentage of the vote she might need to claim victory, shall we say, and give her a legitimate shot at overturning or upsetting Trump in the long run. And on the opposite side, it looks like I can't open two polls at once. So we're just going to let this one run for a bit, just for a few minutes. I can't open two polls at once, unfortunately. Learn new things about Zoom every time I come in here. And what I will do is, again, share my screen so y'all can see the results. Now we've already got a good sample in. Looks pretty evenly distributed here, but the slight winner is that she needs to win outright just to get to have a shot at toppling Trump in the long run.
Are you showing the results here? I'm just seeing Zoom. I don't see any numbers on the screen.
That is interesting. You see a Zoom?
Yeah. I just see Zoom in the middle, and that's all I see on the screen. Is like
that is interesting. Hold on, let me try this because I've got it up on my screen. I can see.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The way you were talking, it sounded like you did. And I was like,
this guy sounds like he thinks he's sharing something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of curious what other people are thinking. I'm kind of watching the votes right now.
Can you see it over here?
No, now I see keep in mind. Survey one. Yes.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
I see the slide for it.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Rick, yes, I can see it fine.
Can you? Am I looking the wrong place?
Nick, you can see it?
I can see it.
That's interesting. I can't explain it.
It's right in the center of my screen. It overlays the presentation screen.
You see the presentation screen?
I just see the slide, survey one slide.
And you see what? Who do you think? Oh, I wonder. Yeah. You know why, Nick? Because I made you co-host. That's why.
Oh, okay. Oh,
all right. Okay. All right. Let's get away from Zoom technical details. Yeah. Okay. I'll end this poll. It looks like the majority of the folks. It's funny. It's kind of evenly split, but 8 folks think she needs to win outright, and 7 folks think she needs at the bottom end only about 42%. To be able to claim some sort of victory. So that's interesting. We'll see what happens with her campaign. And oh, I see. Now can you see it? Okay.
I see it now. Yes. Thank you.
All right. There you go. Fairly evenly distributed. All right. Well, that's interesting. I was going to do a similar poll with Dean Phillips, but Jeff, if you got it up on your window there, I think Dean Phillips was losing to unprocessed write-in candidate by about 50 points the last time I checked. So I would imagine that would probably doom his campaign to the trash heap after this. All right. So enough of that survey. Something to keep in mind going forward. And this is basically the definition of a political party. A political party exists to organize, and that's my emphasis, organize, because that's going to come up later, like-minded people to win elections and subsequently influence public policy. So keep organizing in mind here, because we've got to win elections. And the only way we're going to influence public policy would seem to be is if we actually have forward party people in the legislature or in various other offices up and down the ballot. So I'd like to review 2022 and 2023. And if you'll excuse me just for a moment, I'm gonna go back into presentation mode here because I lost my notes screen. Ay, ay, ay. Believe me, I do this for a living and it's far more smooth than what you're seeing here. Ah, there we go. That is not what I wanted to do. Once again, as I said, it's usually not Zoom, it's usually Teams. All right, phew, my goodness. Let me know you can see that.
Yeah, we are where we are and how we got here.
Where we are and how we got here. Okay, it's basically a review of the last 18 months. And I want to caveat this by speaking of that real life job that I've got that I tend to do much more smoothly than what I'm doing so far here tonight. I'm a project manager in real life. In fact, I'm a project manager. I run the project management office for a small IT consulting firm. And what I always tell my people, three things I always tell my people. When you have to have a difficult conversation with a client, you know, project is over budget, project is late, whatever. I tell them three things. The first, bad news ages poorly. The sooner you have this conversation, the better off we all are. The truth sets you free, because having an honest and frank discussion of the situation level sets everybody, and you don't have to worry about trying to spin something. And always follow it up with what you're going to do about it, right? So that's basically what you're going to see in the next few slides, how we got to where we are and what we're going to do about it. So through the back half of 22 and 23, we as a party, we developed a bit of a penchant for swinging for the fences, if you will. Looking for the big splash that would get us the media coverage, the donors, et cetera, that we needed to get on the ballot in 2024. And that really started in September of 22 with this big kickoff rally that we had in Houston. You know, the entire national team came down. Andrew Yang came down. Governor Whitman came down, and we had this big event in Houston. And then in February of 23, we issued a statement on the Texas abortion ban law. We called for an amendment to that law to at least add exceptions for rape or incest while the legislature was in session, hoping to drive something like that forward. And then finally, in September of this year, we sponsored the Texas Tribune Trib Fest in Austin. It's a huge political gathering in downtown Austin, and we had we had sponsorship logos all over the place. We had a tent on Congress Avenue on the open Congress on Saturday, each of these swings for the fences, if you will, had a similar characteristic. They consumed literally every resource that we had as an organization, both personnel and financial resources. And they consume these resources in the lead up to them, during them, and even after the fact. For instance, after the kickoff rally in Houston, everybody got sick for the entire month of October in 22. And then we went into the holidays and there was something of a lull. When we tried to come up with this statement on the Texas abortion ban law, it really consumed the entire leadership team for weeks at a time. And it developed some friction between us and the National Party, to the point where my co-chair at the time and a very, very valuable asset to the party, Mr. Bill King, tendered his resignation at the end of that. And that was a difficult result. And then similarly for the TribFest sponsorship, again, in the weeks and leading up to that event, the entire leadership team was consumed. We actually spent a reasonable amount of money on that one as well. And if you were on the street on that Saturday afternoon, I was concerned about a downpour. What I wasn't concerned about was what actually happened. Was it must have been 115, 120 degrees at street level on that day. And, you know, shout out to all the Forward Party volunteers who sat in that tent with us, who greeted the few people who came by because of the weather, etc. I mean, it was literally a brutal day and took the wind out of a lot of sails for many weeks afterwards. And in all of these efforts to hit that home run, we didn't. We unfortunately did not hit the home run. The closest we came was TribFest. We did get some print, some media coverage after that, but we never hit the home run that sort of landed us big time in the eyes of Texas voters. And as a result of all that, of all the effort and resources that we put into those efforts, by the end of, or by September or so, October of last year, we didn't have the necessary organization at the county level to truly support candidates. We didn't have the funds to achieve ballot access. I don't know if you all know, Texas has some of the most onerous barriers to ballot access in the country. And it was going to take a great deal of money. Our estimates were anywhere between $1.5 to $2.25 million to get that done. We didn't have the money to get that done. Seeing all of that, we did have a statewide candidate for Railroad Commission, but she altered her plans and she's now running for a district attorney's office out in West Texas. And so we wound up not even having a statewide candidate that would help us, or that would perpetuate our ballot access for 10 years. So even if we got ballot access, we'd just have to do it all again, over again in 2026. And so in December, we had a meeting of the executive committee, and we voted at that point to defer our longstanding goal. We had tried to get ballot access in 2024. We voted to defer that goal to 2026, where at this point, given where we are, it makes a great deal more sense. So I'm just going to pause there for a second. If anybody has any questions about where we are, how we got here. Any hands up? Any shout outs? All right, I will carry on then.
Rick,
Go
just
ahead.
a quick question. At the 22 meeting, we were told not to vote in the primary
Correct.
because of the petition drive.
Correct.
Does that mean we can now go ahead and vote in the 2024 primary?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There will be no petition drive, and thank you for the question. There will be no petition drive for the Forward Party in 24. You are free, and if not encouraged, to go vote in your primary. There would be one implication to that, and I'll get to that towards the end of this slide deck, and that is if and when the Forward Party holds a convention this summer, when you vote for when you vote in the Republican or the Democratic primary, you become affiliated with that party for the rest of the year, and you could not participate in our convention at subsequent to that. But we'll get to that. I understand that a tremendous number of people will want to vote in the primary, especially if they're still competitive at the presidential level. But perhaps even more so, I've known many, many people over my time as a candidate, especially again, I ran as a Democrat, so knowing that many Democratic voters would cross over to the Republican primary in areas that were heavily gerrymandered to basically vote against what they felt was the lesser of two evils on the Republican side for a down ballot office, whether it's county commissioner, county judge, etc. And if you have the need, you feel the need to do that, if you feel the need to participate in this process in any way, there again, just to reiterate, there will be no ballot drive for ballot access for the forward party in 24. So make your own decisions with that in mind. Okay. Any others out there? All right.
Rick, we got a question from
Okay.
Rocketto.
Okay.
He said on the chat.
Yeah. Can you read it out? I can't see it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It says I can be on the ballot for Federal House District 7 if I can get 500 ballot signatures. Is there any support available for this type of effort?
You can be on the ballot as an independent at this point.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, and we'll get to that in a few slides.
Okay.
We'll discuss what we're going to do in the 24 cycle, given where we are. All right. So I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer here. It's not a complete loss. We have at the moment, we exit 23 with chairs in 12 counties, maybe 14 counties. It's a little fluid at the moment. We have to try to confirm the other two. Those 12 counties collectively have a population of about 14 million people, representing about 46% of the total Texas population. So we have a footprint in all the important counties at this point, a county chair footprint, except maybe Dallas County at this point. We have just under 8,000 people on our mailing list. We have over 20,000 in our database total. The 8,000 is just people that we've got email addresses for. We have hundreds, literally hundreds of latent volunteers out there, folks who have at some point in time in the last year or so stepped up and said they want to volunteer for something. And again, quite frankly, we haven't had the county level organization, there's that word again, organization in place to make proper use of them. But that doesn't mean that we won't be able to reach back out to them when the time comes. We've got a good infrastructure in place. We've got a functioning state executive committee. We've got a bank account, the ability to take donations. We've got a communications team, a website. We've got legal counsel on retainer. We've got, and I should have added it here, but we've got an information system capable of capturing voters and allowing candidates to identify voters and cut turf and send mailers and emails and everything else. We've got all the infrastructure in place that you would need for a functional state political party. We have a steady, although insufficient, and I'll get to that in a minute, stream of monthly recurring donations. And for all of you on the call who are donating monthly, thank you very much for that. We've established contacts with media and donors in the process. And we do have the support of the National Forward Party, which is a bona fide national party with some pretty deep resources at its disposal. So again, while we did not make our overarching goal of being in a position to seek ballot access in 24, we do not exit 23 with a lack of resources. As a matter of fact, I'll reiterate, I ran for United States Congress twice. And as a candidate, I never had resources available to me like what we see on the screen right now. Which begs the question, and I'm going to skip the survey because we've already discussed it, and I don't want to interrupt the flow at this point, which begs the question of what are we going to do in 2024 and beyond to correct course and be in a position to do in 2026 what we had hoped to be able to do in 2024, which is gain ballot access. So basically, there's two things. We need to clarify the message, and we need to organize. And the first point, clarifying the message. We need to simplify our messaging. Part of the criticism that the party nationally, as well as here in Texas, took was that we did not have a traditional party platform. And we frankly let that take us off course, drive us off message discipline, right? So we need to simplify the message and focus on the core mission statement of the Forward Party. And the mission statement is twofold. It's, of course, it's the problem that we see and the solution that we hope to deliver. And the problem is very simple. The dominant parties have corrupted our elections through partisan primaries and gerrymandering. Only hyperpartisan ideological extreme candidates make it through the primary to the general election, And the outcome of most general elections in Texas is predetermined by gerrymandering. They've taken away your ability to choose your representatives and to hold them accountable once they're in office. That's the core problem that we see. That's our mission, is to correct that. Now, you can reword this, you can twist it any way you want, but the core message has got to be there that the two dominant parties, it just happens to be the Republican Party in Texas more than the Democrats, but over the years, the dominant parties have basically taken away your ability to hold your elected representatives accountable at the ballot box. And our solution, our mission, is to empower you, the Texas voters, the silenced majority, to hold your representatives accountable at the ballot box through electoral reforms such as ranked choice voting and nonpartisan primaries. The message has to be that simple, that direct, that easy to deliver, and we cannot get distracted by all of the attacks that might come in, because we're not a traditional party. You've heard it before. We are different by design, and we have to stay different by design to succeed in our mission. That means we need to arm everybody with one more thing, and that is the pivot, right? The pivot away from the question of what is the party's position on fill in the blank, whether it's abortion, immigration, right? You're going to get it. We're going to get it no matter what. And the pivot point is that we do not force a strict top-down platform on our candidates, and that this is a positive, not a negative. It allows forward candidates and forward supported candidates, and back to the question about running as an independent, you can be a forward supported candidate and be an independent, or you could be a forward Republican or a forward Democrat. It allows those candidates to craft a mix of positions on issues that appeal to the majority of the people they wish to represent. And that may very well not survive the current primary process, because the primary process at this point forces heterogeneity in ideology for the party or for the candidates from both parties. So we've got to be able to be very crisp on our message, what the problem is, what our proposed solution is, and be able to pivot back to that core message when we're asked to basically distract and get off message discipline. So this is something that we're going to just drill on for the next literally 2 years. And I will pause again there if there are any questions. Nope, hearing none.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Harold. Yep.
There are an awful lot of things going on policy-wise.
Correct.
And focusing, okay, I understand why you focus on the pivot, the message. But at the same time, you really have to have answers for an awful lot of the issues of the day. Okay, and to me, as an independent or with the forward party, either way, realistically, what you're trying to do is get people to move to the middle.
Correct.
And compromise, okay, and pass legislation that's good for the vast majority of the people.
Correct.
Okay? And essentially, you have to do that with each and every policy issue that's there.
Correct.
Right? And so, you can pivot all you want back to your core message, but if you can convince people that you're going to support them with policy, then it's going to be, they can consider you a throwaway vote.
The policy positions, and let's use you, Harold. Thanks for the question. We'll use you because you've indicated that you might want to run as an independent candidate. The policy positions are going to come from you, and we're not going to dictate them to you. We're not going to dictate to you that you need to have a certain policy on immigration. We're not going to dictate to you that you're going to have a certain policy on abortion. You're going to come up with the policy positions that you feel are going to be most representative for the people you want to represent. So you get to craft policy.
You're going to get the question, whether you like it or not.
Sure.
You're going to get the question that says, what does the forward party stand for in this case? And you're going to have to say something about it.
Yeah, and the forward party stands for the ability of our candidates to craft positions that are appropriate and representative of the people they want to represent.
I'm not sure that'll fly.
Well,
Well,
Honest to God, I'm really not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure without the actual forward party taking on some of the major positions, major policy issues, okay, with a centrist proposal that's going to fly. And anybody else wants to jump in, yell.
yep. Jeff has a hand raised, and anybody who wants to jump in, by all means, let's discuss, because this is a
Yeah, I would say to you, Harold, I agree with you that today that is absolutely true. That people expect candidates to well, the parties, I guess I should say, the parties to have a position. The parties, the Republican Party on abortion is known, it's out there. The Democrats' position is known, it's out there. So that's what everybody expects. If you're a Democrat, they expect you to be towing that line and always agreeing with whatever it is that the party is saying. I think what we're trying to do with the Forward Party is open it up and say, hey, we're not going to tell you. And this is the thing too, that I've heard some of the candidates, I think, who was it, lady, the Whitmire? She basically said she had a sit-down meeting with the Republicans, and they told her, this is what your opinion will be on these subjects. And if you deviate from that, then you are not a Republican. And so it was a very hard line that they had to fit into that little box, and that they couldn't vary outside of that and still expect to get any kind of support from the party. So I think what we're trying to do is give the candidates more freedom to be able to express whatever their opinion is. And then it's up to the voters to decide, do I like the way that you're, on this particular issue?
So
ultimately it is. Oh, go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see how to raise my hand. Normally I know how to do that, but I don't see that on the menu. But I guess, sort of in the middle of what Harold and Jeff were saying, how do you know what criteria do candidates have to fit in the Forward Party if you don't stand for anything? I mean, I love this position because I've complained about this, that you can't have a Republican who has modest or moderate beliefs, and views, because they're going to get squashed.
Correct.
And so I love this position, but there has to be something where, someone falls naturally into this party.
So
This is Peter. Sorry, I'm on the phone, so
Yep.
can't raise my hand. This is my first time, by the way, attending. This is really fascinating to listen in. Thanks for
Thank you.
doing this. No, I actually, there's two things I wanted to say. I think I understand the concern of if you're too wide open. So I think maybe a compromise could be, our candidates can have their own, which way they, opinion on where they lean towards on certain things, but we can't have extreme positions, right?
Thank you
can't
for-
have
Thank you for
absolutely no
articulating that.
position. Yeah, and I think that's a good compromise. I think the other thing I was going to say was, one thing though I think that we should push for or have is rank-based voting. So even within the Forward Party, if there are multiple Forward Party members who want to, I don't know, run for the same district, and maybe one's Republican leaning or one's Democrat leaning, it doesn't matter. As a party and as like a way to change the system, we should all collectively be in favor of rank-based voting.
And we indeed are. And I'm sorry, I only see your phone number. Can I get your name?
Yeah, it's actually Peter, first and last name. It's easy to remember.
All right, Peter.
Thanks for nice. You say it twice.
You can have my job as state chair. that was very well articulated, and is actually spot on, because we do have a set of guardrails, if you will, although they're not clearly defined at this point, that you cannot be a Forward Party candidate if your positions on a given issue are what we would consider extreme, right? You just simply won't get the nomination or the endorsement of the party. And Holly, I want to get back to something that you mentioned. You said the dreaded phrase that we've heard again and again. We've been accused of being the Seinfeld party, right? The party that doesn't stand for anything. And I want to begin the process of squelching that understanding, because we stand for something extremely important, and that is the bedrock foundation of our democracy, which are free and fair elections and the ability to hold our elected representatives accountable at the ballot box. This is something that we do not have right now. And one of the reasons these issues fester and become so divisive, again, whether it's abortion or whether it's immigration, income inequality, whatever, wealth disparity, whatever issue it might be, you can roll the clock back 25, 30 years and probably the same issues are still on the table at that time. And one of the reasons they don't get solved is because the current process incentivizes our elected officials to not solve them. And we, despite all the calls to vote them out, we are unable to vote them out because they've rigged the system to preserve their positions. All right, I'm pausing
William
again.
Taggart has his hand up.
William.
So this is the whole reason why. So my point is, the idea of the party not taking a position is fine. The idea that the candidates are somehow going to, in all the time with the candidate running, he's supposed to come up with all these policy positions is the part that drives me crazy. Because I just don't think the candidates have the bandwidth to do that and run for office. And that's the whole reason I wrote my book. So I do think the Forward Party needs to not say we are going to be take this hard position like the Republicans and Democrats have done, but I do think that the Forward Party needs to supply that policy data, that set of information, so that candidates can see what the policy positions are and understand the pros and cons of them.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that we're lacking.
We do lack it at the moment simply because we lack the resources to generate it. And there's absolutely no reason why, there's no reason why with the proper resources, we can't provide that policy data and let candidates form their own positions. And I'll push back a little bit on the fact that candidates won't have time to formulate their own positions, because I ran for Congress twice with absolutely no support from the Democratic Party, and I formulated my positions. I didn't win, so there's that, but I was able to formulate positions believe me, with negligible support from either the state or the national party. I think a couple of other people had their hands up.
Harold has his hand up.
Okay, Harold.
Hi. What I see as a centrist, which I assume large numbers of the independents might be, what I see is that there is pulling from both sides to the point that you can get enough people to compromise and enough people to pass legislation. And so your policy doesn't have to be cast in stone. You can tell people that your policy, here's what I ideally want. But if I can get people to give me 40% of this or 60% of this, they have my vote. And I think that would aside from the people that are deeply committed to immigration or abortion or gun rights, okay, that would fly with most people. The idea that you can change a legislature with very few in this day and age, with very few independents who are willing to put forward compromise positions when they see them benefiting the country.
I agree in principle, but when you talk about changing the legislature in the current environment of partisan primaries and incredibly effective gerrymandering.
I'm not talking about the election process now. I'm talking about after you get elected and the actual,
the problem, and I think Holly cited the problem is that moderates do not get elected in the current environment.
Well, we're trying to change that.
Let's try to change that.
I
agree
don't think
100%.
we can change that with the simplistic message that you're putting forward, and then telling each individual candidate, you figure out what policies you want to support.
That's fair.
I think it has to be more of a concerted effort by the state and national and the candidates to come up with something. And you say there are guardrails. Well, I haven't seen the guardrails yet, and I'm willing to live within the guardrails.
As I said, the guardrails are conceptual at this point rather than specific.
Rick,
Let
Julie
me
has
ask
her
you
hand
this question then. Let me ask you this question. I consider that a primary piece of what we would have to do. What would it take to get these guardrails defined,
Basically,
aside from twisting arms and kicking ass?
it might be a little of that. Basically, we need to get
A lot of that.
a committee together to actually do so. All right, I get a couple of raised hands. I see, and I want to get to folks who have not spoken yet.
Julie and Tony.
Julie and Tony, in that order. Julie.
Yes.
Hey, I just want to say, I mean, it's really easy to get. I think what I love about the Forward Party, it's like you're not picking a jersey, and it's really easy to, well, what's your policy position on this, and what's your policy position on that, and then we just get stuck in the gridlock. And every 4 years, our fundamental life doesn't improve, but we're still asking the question, well, what's your position on this, and what's your position on that? And so, to give you I was looking at I got an email from the President Biden earlier talking about, abortion. And fun fact, when Obama, ran for office in 2000, one of the first things he was going to do was going to codify Roe v. Wade. And now, to go back to what Rick was talking about, problems don't get solved, our quality of life gets going down. So I would really like it if we could just walk away from what's your position on this and what's your position on that, and more on how can we fundamentally fix our broken system. And like Rick said, that's back to election of reform and ensuring that we get the right people in office to help fix these problems that affect everyday life.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Tony?
And I'm going to piggyback
Hi,
right
Tony.
on. Hey, I am here.
That Tony.
That Tony. I'm going to piggyback right on what Julie said, because the ranked choice voting, open primaries, and getting rid of gerrymandering is such a leap for most candidates, that for them to embrace those three things, which means they're willing to give up whatever personal political power they get with the system, and to embrace those, is going to be a strong foundation for any other decisions they make. If you believe that, that says a lot about what you believe. It really does. And so the answer to so many problems is we got to change the system. I can make all these small short-term changes I want, but it's the big thing that's going to make the difference, because that's how the American voter can be heard. So running for office, embrace those three things. You want voters to be heard.
Thank you, Tony. And just, as an example, the incumbents tend to not embrace these principles because they benefit from the current system. As an example, ranked choice voting Texas had a handful of bills that they were lobbying hard for ranked choice voting, different forms of ranked choice voting for overseas military members, etc. Every one of those bills went into the elections committee and never saw the light of day again, because the incumbents don't want anything to do with empowering the voters to actually vote them out if they don't do what the majority wants them to do. So let's move on, away from fine-tuning the message and focusing the message to organize, organize, organize. And again, this organized word, we need to focus, decentralize is another word that's in my head all the time at this point. We need to organize at the county level. We need to decentralize this party. We need to get as many parties organized and established as we possibly can. We need to establish county executive committees, a regular cadence of regular meetings. Regular meetings is a big deal. Regular meetings give people a predictable opportunity to engage with the party. It's a big deal. It's one of the reasons why I've certainly committed to doing one of these statewide meetings every fourth Tuesday of the, it's Tuesday, right? Every fourth Tuesday of the month. Going forward, because again, that regular cadence, I can't make it this month, but I can make it next month, gives people to an opportunity to engage with the party. We need to recruit precinct chairs, and you can see I'm going down here, down the hierarchy. We need to establish county level committees, the communications capabilities and finance capabilities. Counties need to be able to raise their own money, just like the Democratic county parties and the Republican county parties do. We need to conduct regular outreach to potential forward supporters, and whether it's tabling at a local festival, whether it's holding meet and greets at a local watering hole, we need to make these regular outreaches to potential supporters. And believe me, in this current environment where the two major parties are about to foist presidential candidates on us that literally 70% of the country do not want to see, we've got a marvelous environment in which to start promoting the forward message at the grassroots level. And speaking of the grassroots level, we do not have ballot access in 2024. We cannot run anybody as a forward party candidate. However, we do need to establish county level goals for the 24 and 25 elections. We can and we should recruit and support forwardists to run in nonpartisan elections, such as mayoral, city council, and school boards, etc. They may not be carrying the forward party brand on the ballot, but they can carry the forward party message into their elected position. For instance, I just moved to San Marcos back in October. Every year, regardless of the even or odd year, every year there are 2 seats of the San Marcos City Council are up for election. So in 24, the mayor's up for election and two seats, and in 25, 2 city council seats are also up for election. The Hays County Forward Party has to have a plan for those elections. And we need to identify independent, Harold, talking to you, independent candidates or even other party candidates, Republicans or Democrats, who may be worthy of forward party endorsement and support. Just because a candidate is a Democrat or a Republican doesn't mean that we can't support them if they embrace the core mission of the forward party, which is the electoral reforms that we seek. So I've got an example. I don't know if Venetia is on the call or not. Venetia Johnson is running for House District, I'm going to mess it up, 46, I think, down in the Fort Bend area. And she's running as a Democrat, but she has an interesting platform in that if you read the platform from top to bottom, it pretty much reads like a Democratic candidate, except she explicitly calls out support for ranked choice voting. And secondarily, she calls out her personal position of supporting school choice, which is not a typical Democratic Party primary candidate position. But we could, as a forward party, possibly support her because she supports the core mission of the party. And, I mean, certain people on this call or certain people in the party may not agree with her positions, but it's up to the voters of her district to either agree or disagree with those positions. So we need to have county level goals for the 24 and the 25 election cycles. Those are for, again, nonpartisan positions, county level positions, but also at the state level, if there's a candidate for United States Congress, who might be worthy of our endorsement, a candidate for the United States Senate who might be worthy of our endorsement, then we would consider those as well as part of participating in the 2024 cycle. We need to build the ground organization necessary to support candidates like Vidicia, like potentially Harold. I mean, truly support these candidates so that there is a mutual benefit for us, the party, and them, the candidates, so that we can gain ballot access in 2026. So again, I'll pause. Actually, I've got one more, because this is a message that we've got to pound home. We will not be successful in 2026 if we do not build local party infrastructure and support over the next 2 years. It's plain and simple. So I'll pause for questions. All right, hearing none, I'll move on to ways to help.
I do. Why, when you talk about building a grassroots party from the ground up, and all this focus went into ballot access, that didn't come to pass, probably for a lot of reasons that I have no concept in my head about. Are we not pushing the envelope? And maybe we should be pushing the envelope in the direction of electing independent candidates that the forward party can support, as opposed to going after this infrastructure for ballot access that takes, from what I can see, an awful lot of money.
It does. It does. It takes an awful lot of money. And it's
I'm
going to
just
take
saying,
an
is
awful
there
lot
an
of effort.
alternate to this? Yeah,
Right.
is there an alternate to this where all of a sudden we grow a party, actually grow it from the ground up in terms of people electing people?
At least for the next 12 months, if maybe not the next 18 months, those two alternatives are not mutually exclusive. Even to support independent candidates, we have to have local party infrastructure. We have to have people, boots on the ground, who are willing to go out and be organized and support those independent candidates. That is a building block both to supporting independent candidates as well as gaining ballot access in 2026. And we're going to need a lot of support to get ballot access in 2026, either from the national party or from donors. But it's a lot more compelling of an argument or a proposition to those types of donors where you have a ground game, where you have a plan, where you have an infrastructure to actually support candidates to justify their investment in supporting our ballot access drive in 2026. Now we get to make a decision midway through 2025. Are we on track or not? And if we aren't, we need to pivot again. And again, Harold, maybe at that point we do follow a pure independent candidate approach, but we get to make that decision in about 18 months.
I would think that we get to make it sooner than that, if we
See how
want
it
to be ready
goes.
for a 2026 election. I have a son who is I hate to say this, people, please don't boo. He is a dyed in the wool progressive, millennial progressive. And he started an organization called Run for Something.
Yep.
That went ahead and at the grassroots level, and I mean below house. I mean they elected who's the Harris County judge right now? What's her name again? I forgot. It just was slipped right by me.
Hidalgo.
Okay, they actually, huh?
Hidalgo?
Hidalgo.
Yeah. Yeah, Hidalgo. Okay, they actually took her and coached her through the entire process. And they've gotten dramatic support from the Democratic Party and their ability to grow an organization. But the first year out, they actually elected 1,000 people.
Sure.
give or takes, the exact number, I'm not sure, but it's around 1,000. Okay, to various low-level offices.
Yep.
And
That's a good model.
I'm not sure if that's the right approach or not, but I present it in that should we be heading in that direction?
That's exactly
Where
what this slide,
where
that's
most
exactly
of
what this
the
slide says.
actual,
That's exactly what this
Where
slide says. I apologize if that wasn't clear.
it wasn't clear.
Yeah, we need to
But
be
but most of the elected officials in this country don't even have don't even have multiple people running for the office.
correct. More than half are unopposed. That's correct. Now, the model is good. And again, if I wasn't clear in this slide that we need to be, and again, it's this bullet right here, I can't highlight it for you, recruit and support forwardists to run in nonpartisan elections, such as, again, these are down ballot elections. Justice of the peace, I'll throw that on there as well. Lower level, as you say, elections to do a couple of different things. First of all, get people who support our mission into elected office, but it also helps us build the support and the infrastructure that we would need to carry that up the ballot, if you will, in future years. It's first. Oh, I also want to make a point. You said please don't boo. I hope nobody ever boos either a hyper far left a progressive Democrat or a dyed-in-the-wool Trumpist Republican voters, because I think one of the worst things the two major parties do is demonize the other party's supporters. It's one thing to go after candidates. It's one thing to go after elected officials. I think it's entirely unconscionable to be just stereotyping and blanket, making blanket statements about the people who support or cast votes for those people. I think it's a disaster. It's bad for this country. So Harold, you and I are and you and I are actually pretty well aligned here on what we think we want to do. Are there any? Sorry, Charles has a hand raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and this may be more of a national party question. Has there been any thought given to recruiting high level, big name,
Much
soon to
thought.
be former Republicans?
Much thought. Yes, absolutely.
I figured it had to be.
You have a high profile former Republican in Governor Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, as one of the co-chairs of the National Party. We
need more of them.
Yes, I agreed. I know there has been outreach to others, but those roots run deep, and they still perceive benefit to, if not being fully aligned with the Republican Party, at least not disowning the Republican Party. And the same can be said for Democrats. There are folks on the Democratic side that I know we've approached as well, who just aren't quite yet ready to pull the ripcord and do something different. Some of that may have to do with the fact that we're in a presidential year, and everything. Let's just face it, folks. All the oxygen in the room is going to be consumed by what looks very much to be a Biden-Trump rematch, which is another reason to focus down ballot, right?
Yeah, but that makes it easier to elect people down ballot.
That's yes, agreed, 100%.
It just seems to me that this is the time. I mean, I know that at one point there were some Republicans that were looking to, did they want to break away from the Republican Party, or did they? And they said they wanted to try to change from within. And guys, you've had a couple years, and trying to change from within just isn't working.
Agreed.
Let's go with something that you can be proud to say you're a part of.
Agreed, 100%. And one of the reasons why we decided to form a political party that would hopefully someday be able to run and elect candidates, rather than being yet another advocacy group for these types of issues is, again, the incumbents benefit from the current system, and advocacy groups have shown, unfortunately, despite all their goodwill and their hard efforts, zero ability to move the needle on these issues, on our core mission, shall we say. We think we need elected officials in office to actually make this happen. So ways to help: hey, you can be a county or a precinct chair or a local organizer. Just go to that URL, texasforward.org/volunteer, tick a box, sign up. If you can't be any of those, you can, tick the other box and we'll see what we can do. Although, quite frankly, if there isn't a county chair in your county, we'll probably have to basically put you on a waiting list until we get that leadership in your county. Harold, you can run for office. Go to the same URL, go to texasforward.org and volunteer and tick that run for office button, and I will call you. I will call you directly. And donate. We do not have an immense budget. We do not have immense financial needs at this point. But we do have some financial needs. As a matter of fact, we are a little short on our monthly recurring donations. We'd like to add about $2,000 a month to our recurring donations. And I'm not asking any individual person to go out and sign up for $2,000 a month, but if 100 people come in at $20 a month, we're there. And that's to maintain our simple, modest operating costs, to maintain our legal retainer, to maintain licensing for the various software tools, etc., that we use. For instance, this Zoom call, which costs us a whopping $16.95 a month. And keep in mind that this is an all volunteer organization. Nobody's getting paid here. Nobody's making money off your donations. It all goes to support operating costs. And hopefully, eventually we get enough to support candidates who support our mission going forward. All right. The last question is to convene or not to convene. We have said since our inception now that we would have precinct, county, and statewide nominating conventions in 2024 because we had expected to have ballot access and to have candidates. Those nominating conventions are now moot, and state law is silent on whether or not we as a party are required to hold a convention. Now, we could hold a convention to do a couple of things. We could hold elections for statewide officers, my seat, the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, and to amend and update our party rules. There's also a variety of other things we could do at a statewide convention, provide seminars and guidance for candidates and for county chairs and precinct chairs, etc. But by state law, to participate in one of our conventions, you must be affiliated with the Forward Party, and we'll come all the way back around to Charles's initial question about whether or not he should vote in the primary. And if you do vote in the primary, then you become affiliated with the party that you vote, whose primary you vote in, and you cannot participate in a Forward Party convention, should we have one. So the question, I'm going to stop my share just for a minute. And I'm going to launch the last question just to get a read of the folks in the room. This is by no means definitive or binding. Do I have to share the results? Stop sharing. Done. Unbelievable. Okay, back. Okay, thanks. And I'm going to launch
I
it.
don't know where to vote. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I'm launching. Hi, Venetia. How are you? Sorry, I just the question is, would you forego voting in the primary to participate in a Forward Party convention? And I'll let the vote tally. Give it another few seconds. We've got 24 out of 32 votes in, 75% turnout. That's pretty good for an election. All right, I will end the poll, share the results. Can you all see the results? Does it put it up for you?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So 52% yes, absolutely. You would forego voting in the primary to be able to participate in a forward party convention. 44% said maybe, depends on what happens in the next few weeks. That's not surprising. And only one person out there absolutely feels they must vote in their primary. And believe me, I encourage you to do so. I absolutely encourage you to
Rick,
do
one
so.
thing. Rick,
Yes.
one thing. We could hold the convention. If they had voted in the primary, Republican, Democrat, they could participate as a non-voting member.
Non-voting. Absolutely.
So that's an option.
Yep.
Think about that.
Yep. So you can be there, but you can't cast votes on any of for the statewide offices or any other motion that may come to the floor.
Can't participate and elect for yourself for a statewide office either.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and if you, again, to be clear, if you vote in a primary, you cannot hold an office in the forward party, not just statewide. You cannot be a county chair. You cannot be a precinct chair. All right. Thank you all very much. We will have a state executive committee meeting the second Tuesday of February. We will make a decision on a convention at that point. We will send out a blast email saying whether we're going to have a convention or not. And that will give you several weeks before the March 5th primary to make your decision, and hopefully the presidential situation or any other situation that you may feel is contingent on whether or not you make that decision should be firmed up by March 5th, and you can make a decision. So we will let you know after the EC meeting in February. All right, I will stop yapping and open it up for any further questions.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Is there a county chair in Harris County?
William Taggart is your county chair in Harris
Yes,
County.
Harold. Yes, Harold, and it's me acting as the interim.
You said, say that again. I missed part of it.
William Taggart. You and I met last year, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. That's not what I did. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any others? All right, gang, it sounds like we are good to wrap it up. I want to thank you all again for spending a little over an hour of your Tuesday evening with us. Thanks for your interest in what we're doing. Hope we can count on your support going forward. And if nothing else, we'll see you in a month, 4th Thursday of February. All right, we'll see you. Hey, Missy, how are you?
Thanks, Rick. See
All
you
right.
Yeah,
soon.
thanks, Rick,
See
for
everybody.
doing this. Talk to you
Deb
all later.
Albers came in. Man, so many folks came in. Okay. Take
All
care,
right,
everybody.
bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.